You can see where they laid the water down right off that edge. You can use a bulldozer, you could also use a road grader. All you want them to do is just scrape the surface. You know, you're not trying to build a big road, but fire can go underneath these mulch piles and cause problems. Oh, John Weir, Oklahoma State University Extension Prescribed Fire Specialist. Today we're going to talk about fire breaks and about all the different types of fire breaks that can be used on a prescribed burn. What fire breaks do is they help delineate the burn unit. So they delineate what we're going to burn. They outline that burn unit. They allow for the passage of equipment and people around that burn unit. So that's a big part of it. And then they're also used as what they're called as a fire break to help break that fuel so the fire is contained on one side and hopefully doesn't creep past or go burn past the other side of it. So this fire break here, this burn has been done a few days past. So this was done where you have a combination of, they were using a 2-track road or a feed road, and in conjunction with mowing. They mowed it down to reduce the fuel, used a mowed line. They use the 2-track road as at least a kind of a base, because a lot of times 2-track roads may be down to bare ground. Some of them may not be, just like this one, but again, used in mowing in conjunction of it. And a lot of times too, you want to mow it inside this fire break to reduce the fuel right next to the edge of it. And then they come in and wet lined it. So again, they used water as the fire break. You can see where they laid the water down right off that edge within that and lit off of that water edge where they laid it right here in this track, right on this edge right here, and lit off of it and let the fire back away or go away from that edge. One of the biggest problems with mowed lines is mulch that accumulates, especially in areas that you got high amounts of grassy fuels. So again, you got to mow this down. The more mulch you have, you spray water over the top of it, and it inhibits fire from spreading over the top, but fire can go underneath these mulch piles and cause problems. And so mulch is a big problem. So that's one of the biggest things about mowed lines is you need to mow them well in advance of when you plan on burning them. Don't go mow them 2 weeks or a week before you burn them. You need to start thinking about mowing them 6 months in advance. That way, a lot of times it gives this mulch time to deteriorate and go away. Also, or it can blow away and things like that. So it reduces the problems and stuff the earlier and the more frequent you mow an area for mowed lines. Here's another great example of a mowed line fire break, but this mowed line is maintained year-round. So they continually mow it. It helps reduce any kind of mulch buildup of anything like that. This mowed line actually starts to green up with a lot of cool seasons and some things like that as the winter goes through. So again, it helps make that fire break even a little more effective. But the biggest thing about maintaining mowed lines year-round is being able just to reduce the amount of residue that gets built up. So maintaining them year-round, mowing them all summer long as they grow up, mow them down, keep them short, you can make some really good fire breaks that are pretty easy to work off of. You're going to spray a wet line down. That's going to be what you're going to light off of with this. But again, you're going to have to do less work and stuff working off of a mowed line that's maintained like this. So here we are on a fire break that's been disked. So again, they use a disc. A lot of times you mow it first to help remove a lot of the excess vegetation and stuff, get it knocked down so the disc will cut and go down. And then you're going to come in with a disc. A lot of times disking works best doing it twice. So you do it one direction, turn around and disc it back the opposite direction. Again, with a disc line, what you want to do is definitely incorporate all the vegetation so that you've got a bare ground fire break, and so nothing will creep across. One thing you've got to be careful with is like this area right here where the disc didn't cut all the way down and you still have vegetation that's coming across almost over halfway across that fire break. So that means that's not a good fire break. You get in areas where the vegetation didn't cut and it goes all the way across that disc line, you really don't have a good fire break. So you gotta be real careful with disc lines and make sure that you cut them down deep enough and they get them good continuous bare ground fire breaks. But disc lines work really great. They help reduce a lot of erosion because again, you still got incorporated a lot of vegetation in there and stuff. And a lot of times too, the disc isn't cutting down real deep. So a lot of times the crowns and the roots of a lot of plants and stuff are still intact and they'll recover and come back pretty quickly. So here we are, an example of a fire break that's been dozed. You can use a bulldozer. You could also use a road grader or a maintainer. And again, this is a great example of one where all you want them to do is just scrape the surface. You don't want them to, you know, you're not trying to build a big road. You're trying just to, you're scraping the vegetation off of the surface of the soil, minimal soil disturbance, pushing it over. If you do have an angle blade that they're using, again, you want to push roll that soil to the outside of the burn unit so you don't have it all balled up with vegetation on the inside. It'll smolder for several days doing that, cause problems. So you want to roll that to the outside of the burn unit if you're having an angle blade do this. The other thing about bladed lines and stuff is, especially in timbered areas where you've got some timber like this, is you're going to have some down trees and stuff like that. You need to be careful not to try to pile this stuff if you keep from it, especially next to the edge. Push it on into the burn unit where it's not going to be a problem when it catches on fire or burns anything. If possible, you can push it out of the burn unit, but a lot of times that's not feasible or possible. You know, great example of a bare ground fire break. Allows access for all your vehicles and equipment to get up and down it, people to work off of, real simple and easy. Sometimes again too, if you got real heavy fuels, you can mow to also help reduce that intensity and the fuel load right there next to the edge of the burn unit if you need to or can do that.